Hello, I'm Rajendra Roy, Chief Curator of Film at the Museum of Modern Art. And on behalf of our colleagues at Film and Lincoln Center, it's my pleasure to welcome you to this Q&A session for Shepherdess and the Seven Songs. I'm here with the director, Pushpendra Singh. On behalf of everyone at New Directors, New Films, we're so sorry that we can't be welcoming you here in New York as we had intended back in March, but thank you so much for joining us over Zoom for this reprise screening here in December for New Directors. And congratulations for being a part of the series.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting the film.
Of course. So first off, most importantly, how are you? How has the pandemic been for you, and how has it affected the film?
Yeah, it's like after Berlin, as we were like in touch with the NDNF, so I was planning, and I was just rushing to get a new passport and applying for the visa for US, and also my previous film Pearl of the Desert, which was invited to CPH Docs.
Yeah.
So I was supposed to travel to CPH Docs and from CPH Docs to New York. So all the plans crashed, and I'm still at home. Yeah. So yeah, and the film, could have traveled, more, and but that's how it's with everyone. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's been the great equalizer of the pandemic, is that it really has affected everyone. Has the film been able to be screened virtually or digitally for folks? Have you released it at home or anywhere in the world yet?
No. Mumbai Film Festival was keen to screen it also. They had sent an invitation, but unfortunately, it's not happening this year. So in India, not yet. No screening has been done. We are avoiding virtual screenings as much as possible, only like for important premieres where we cannot avoid it, so then it's fine for us. Otherwise, we're still sticking to physical screenings.
Yeah, well, we're very grateful for this opportunity, and having seen the film, it feels like a long ago. I instantly became a fan, and I'm also a bit heartbroken because it is such a beautifully shot film, a beautifully created film. To see it on a big screen is so different. And I look forward to the day when we can screen it in person in New York and one of our big screens. One of the things, though, that I do think is incredibly relevant for this moment, I mean, I've been thinking about, writing about how important stories of myth and fantasy and folklore are in this moment, and in particular, moments of crisis throughout history. And I'm just wondering, they can be both an escape from reality, but also a way to confront very difficult situations. And maybe you could just talk a little bit about tackling this folklore story, this story, and give a little bit of background on the tale itself.
Yeah, the tale is an adaptation of a folk tale called Kenchuli by Vijay Dandeta, who is this Marxist writer from Rajasthan who passed away. He was, he would collect folk tales and then reinterpret and rewrite them, bringing in themes of feminism, about marginalized class, and then resistance, and then he would, he would just turn the folk tale on their heads, and then rewrite them. So this was one of them, and it really this was written like in late 1960s. So I was very fascinated when I read it, and I was like, wow, this man in 1960s was imagining a tale where a woman's desires were also like explode,
Yeah.
So I was really fascinated by it, and then I wanted to adapt it. But my first feature, Lajwanti, which was also at Berlin, was also based on his folktale. Was already set in Rajasthan, so I didn't want to set it again in Rajasthan. And because I follow politics a lot, contemporary events a lot, so I was following this story of Bakarwal Gujars in Kashmir, how they are marginalized within the larger discourse of Kashmir.
Right.
So they are a minority within the minority, So and also the state of women within that, So they are further marginalized, So then I was thinking, and then I thought I really thought that, the folktale could really transport to Kashmir really well. And also it would become more contemporary because in folktale, the woman was being harassed by this middleman of the Thakur, who is this feudal caste,
Right.
caste in the village. Uh, and then I thought, because if you look at Kashmir, it's the security people who are now the feudal lords, like who control. And then they have this middleman. So this forest guard becomes the middleman, and then because they stay in the forest, so he becomes this point of contact for them. And then, that becomes a cause of, conflict. So yeah, so then and then because I really follow the Bhakti poets like Kabir. I'm a big fan of Kabir. So yeah, I'm associated with that movement. And then I discovered Lal Ded in Kashmir. So then I thought, like if I'm adapting, I cannot escape Lal Ded, because she's been such a huge figure in Kashmir and her poetry. And she spoke about all these issues back in the 14th century also. So which means, all these issues are still relevant.
Yeah.
And then she was such a, uh, what do you call, a revolutionary figure that, she had discarded her clothes and she used to, walk naked and then sing this poetry, so which is still unimaginable. So that was like really a strong point for me. And then I was like very convinced that, because in the folktale also, in the end, we see that she discards her clothes and walks and it starts raining. So that's the ending in the Rajasthani folktale also. And I imagine as the Lal Ded,
Yeah, incredible. I mean, it's in a way I'm thinking it's hard to prioritize your bravery in a sense. I mean, the idea of grounding a film these days in poetics and in the history and the kind of centuries long traditions of poetry, it seems in a way remarkable that you would tackle this as a contemporary filmmaker. It's a shame in a way. I wish more people were that tuned into the history and certainly literary history as part of it, but also the bravery of setting this in a Kashmiri setting. I'm wondering though, on the practical side, I mean, where did you shoot? Was there pushback as you were developing this, and was there nervousness even on the part of your crew or your cast of telling this type of story? Any pitfalls you had to avoid in terms of both the political but the practical elements of creating this story?
Yeah, I'm very much there. But I've because if you look at all my films, I really work with local communities and cast them, and I work folklore, myths in all my films, and also commenting on contemporary issues. So in 2017, when I made my second film, so it was screened at Dharamshala. So from Dharamshala, I knew the Bakarwals were migrating back. So I went and I touched base with a figure who was a bureaucrat from the Gujar community in Kashmir, who was really archiving the folk music of the community a lot. And I'm also a Gujar, but I'm a Hindu Gujar, So, and the folktale was also set in the community. So that was also one connection. So, through my contacts, there was a classmate of mine who was also a bureaucrat based in Bangalore. So I took contacts from him, and then I connected base with him, and then he really helped me a lot in connecting me to Bakarwals. And then, so that really gave me confidence. And it was very strange that in my first visit itself, they asked me to do this video and highlighting their problems on Facebook,
Yeah. No, I get it.
Yeah. But then, that really helped in building a relationship.
Yeah.
Then, and then I went again in 2018 when they migrate upwards. And it was a sight to behold, it was this transhumance migration in the world, which no one talks about.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, like thousands of Bakarwals and Gujars, they migrate from the lower valley, even from the plains to the higher valley, And I was really fascinated. And then they connected me to this Bakarwals who stay near Jammu. And by then, politically, there was, near Jammu, a Bakarwal a small girl was raped and murdered. So they were really afraid. And then, so again, I was like, I did not know like how to react, what to do. But, I was like in touch with them, talking to them constantly. And, in my first meeting itself, before that political incident had happened, I was assuming, looking at the political events in the country, that, something was not right there with Gujars and Bakarwas also, because there was a foreign minister from BJP who was targeting them. And I was warning them that, like, you to be aware. And they were like very confident because they have this nice relationship, which is still there. I'm at Touchwood, which is still there. The political incident did not affect it because they live closely with Hindus there. So then, uh, they agreed, but then they said, we won't go to the valley when you shoot there. So what we did was they helped us shoot the valley scenes in the safer zone.
I see.
And also in during the Reiki, once I insisted with my crew that let's go there, but then the army and police force stopped us before Jawahar Tunnel. They did not allow us to cross Jawahar Tunnel because there were protests going on against Article 35A. They were assuming that it will be removed. So they were, I insisted a lot, but then the Bakarwals were also afraid that they said, no, let's not go. But when we were shooting the migration, because the film was shot in 3 schedules, I insisted, and then we did go to Shopian, which is South Kashmir, which was the hotbed of militancy and, this targeting.
Yeah.
So we did spend one night at Shopian, and then we followed their trail while they were like coming back.
Such incredible dedication. I mean, what an inspiration. And I know doing that work of embedding yourself in the community and really developing that trust is a fundamental and such a great message for emerging filmmakers to hear from you, that that's a huge part of the job of a creator, of an artist, is to do that work ahead of time to create trust with the folks you're working with. On the feminist message, which I'm glad you mentioned, I mean, it is unmistakable. And to have this character, Layla, who's, surrounded by, foolishness coming from men. I mean, there is obviously a history in India of strong women and women leaders, and in the US, thankfully, we're about to be led by a woman of Indian origin, which we're so happy and proud of. But I mean, still, there is the counterpoint of the violence against women and this extreme misogyny, which still exists. How did you find the balance between those two in creating this story?
It was, it was there in the folktale, so I did not have to work much. Nandita had already done the job.
Yeah,
I had to adapt it. And in the adaptation, the actor Sadakit, who's a folk singer from Bakarwals, he plays the husband in the film. So he really helped me a lot to bring that, humor in the language itself.
Yeah.
So helped. And then what I discovered was, while talking to the Bakarwals, there was a similar folktale in their community also.
Yeah.
So, we found connections. So I've used one of the songs is that folktale itself.
I see.
It's a song of attraction,
Uh-huh.
So folktale, which I brought in the film.
Incredible. So the other thing that really is challenged or interrogated in the film is the idea of modernity itself, and whether progress is possible or even positive. What's your view ultimately? Is there a positive view of modernity to come out of this film?
Yeah, I think we cannot escape modernity, but also we cannot let our folk culture and our cultural heritage disappear,
Right.
And it becomes more important looking at how the right wing wants to, reclaim it, and their whole agenda is based upon that,
Yeah.
They really try to highlight the ancient past, and so I think we should not shy away from using it like how Vijay Dandeta has done. He's done it really wonderfully.
Yeah.
He's taken folklore, mythology, and then also added all this issues of feminism, resistance, etc., combining all those things. So yeah, and it also enriches storytelling.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Well, you found an incredible balance, and again, we're just so proud that we could include it in this year's selection. Before we wrap up, I'm wondering what's next for you. I mean, obviously, we still need to get this film out into the world properly and widely, and we look forward to doing that over the coming months and years. But what do you have in mind next, and have your plans changed over the last few months?
Because I've been thinking a lot, under the lockdown.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have now I'm full of ideas, and I don't know which I'll pursue first.
Yeah.
But of course, there's an Urdu writer called Nayyar Masood. I'm really fascinated by him. So I want to adapt his stories also, and do films, and then also contemporary issues surrounding India, so that they are also in my mind, and doing stories.
Yeah.
And also challenge myself, maybe just try out some urban stories also. So that's also going on in my mind, because all my work, because I come from a village background.
I see.
So so my ideas and my understanding is strongly rooted in that, and I look at the world from that point of view.
Yeah.
So I want to challenge that also, to see, because I think now it's more than 20 years I've been staying in urban areas, metropolitans, and cities like Pune. So yeah, I don't know what comes next.
Yeah. Well, I think we would be very, very eager to see your point of view on an urban landscape as well, which can be even wilder, as we know, than the rural areas in many cases. Pushpender Singh, congratulations again. Thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on your film.
Thank you for inviting the film. Yeah.
And thank you for joining us here at New Directors, New Films.